Does that mean you can't talk about anything unless they give you a quote to run? That is a veto power. That's not how this works. CBS is going full state media, and it is time to be very concerned. My name is Brittany Page, and I am filling in for Jesse today on the Dollemore Daily. He is sick. You may have noticed that he was absent on Friday, and now today I am filling in for him. So far, no positive on the flu and the COVID, so hopefully he will be back to feeling like himself tomorrow. Please send him well wishes in the comments. I'm very happy to be here with you today because this is an important story, and you might be thinking, why do I care? I don't watch CBS News. Unfortunately, a lot of people do watch CBS News. You may know people in your life, your parents, your aunts and uncles, your cousins, your friends, your family, whoever may be watching CBS News and still have no idea what's actually happening behind the scenes. But this latest dust up with 60 Minutes gives us kind of a glimpse. So Paramount-owned CBS pulled a story from 60 Minutes at the last minute last night. A story that had been fact-checked. It was reviewed by lawyers. It was approved. It was ready to go. It was pulled by Bari Weiss. You may remember Bari Weiss. She's now the editor-in-chief at CBS News. She was running an organization called the Free Press. It's one of these outlets that caters to conservatives. The vibe there being that there isn't enough attention paid to conservatives and that you need to have this quote unquote balanced view. Since she has taken over at CBS News, appointed, by the way, by Paramount chief David Ellison, the son of Larry Ellison, the Oracle founder, the advisor and supporter of Donald Trump. When she was put into place, David Ellison said that CBS would become more hospitable to conservatives. So you have to really view Bari Weiss being put in charge of editorial decisions as a gift to Donald Trump. This is an effort to make Donald Trump happy. We know about the 60 Minutes lawsuit that Donald Trump filed and the settlement that was paid out to him and his various attacks on the media, Jimmy Kimmel. All of this has been going on, and Bari Weiss has been appointed to ensure that CBS News toes the line to make Donald Trump happy. Some of the things that she's been doing, by the way, she's bringing this new debate special called Things That Matter. And one of the topics is, has feminism failed women? Yeah, that's a really important topic. That is something that matters. It reminds me of the New York Times headline or debate that they recently had where they said, did women ruin the workplace? Yeah. So this CBS 60 Minutes segment that got pulled was about CONTEMPT. The El Salvador prison that Venezuelan migrants were sent to, abused, viciously harmed, sent there with hoods over their heads, marched out and beaten and abused. We've seen numerous reports about the abuses that took place in this prison, about the horrific circumstances surrounding it. And CBS was going to run. They were going to run a segment on what the Trump administration did by sending people to this torture prison. And in fact, they actually had a promo for this segment that they ended up pulling at the last minute at Bari Weiss's direction. Let's look at the promo briefly for a moment.
It began as soon as the planes landed. The deportees thought they were headed from the U.S. back to Venezuela, but instead they were shackled, paraded in front of cameras, and delivered to CONTEMPT, the notorious maximum security prison in El Salvador, where they told 60 Minutes they endured 4 months of hell.
Did you think you were going to die there?
We thought we were already the living dead, honestly.
It looks like a necessary and powerful segment. So of course, Bari Weiss pulls it because it's going to make the Trump administration look bad. And that's why she was hand-picked by billionaires who support Donald Trump, was to ensure that Donald Trump looks good. And we have this tweet from 60 Minutes where they posted, editor's note, the broadcast lineup for tonight's edition of 60 Minutes has been updated. Our report, Inside CONTEMPT, will air in a future broadcast. Oh, will it? Will it air in a future broadcast? I don't know about that because thankfully we're getting some inside perspective on what went down here with the 60 Minutes correspondent that you saw in that promo who led this segment, who is in charge of this segment. She has put forward a memo that was released by the press, giving us an inside look at what went down here with pulling this necessary, important segment that makes the Trump administration, I mean, we could say it makes them look bad because it does, but it's not even about that. It's just factual reporting about what the Trump administration is doing. And that is necessary and important for people to see. If it makes them look bad, that's not the goal. The goal is factual reporting that informs the public so they know what the Trump administration is due to violate human rights. That's the important thing here. So luckily we have this memo, the text of this memo here provided by Brian Stelter. This is the text of Sherilyn Alfonsi's memo about corporate censorship and, quote, a betrayal of the most basic tenet of journalism. So I'm going to read some of this to you. We're going to go through it. News team. Thank you for the notes and text. I apologize for not reaching out earlier. I learned on Saturday that Bari Weiss spiked our story inside CCOT, which was supposed to air tonight. We asked for a call to discuss her decision. She did not afford us that opportunity/courtesy. Our story was screened 5 times and cleared by both CBS attorneys and standards and practices. It is factually correct. In my view, pulling it now after every rigorous internal check has been met is not an editorial decision. It is a political one. We requested responses to questions and/or interviews with DHS, the White House, and the State Department. Government silence is a statement, not a veto. Their refusal to be interviewed is a tactical maneuver designed to kill the story. If the administration's refusal to participate becomes a valid reason to spike a story, we have effectively handed them a kill switch for any reporting they find inconvenient. And this is really, I think, the most powerful point of this story. Because if the editor-in-chief of CBS News, the MAGA handpicked appointee, Bari Weiss, is saying that they need to kill this story because, well, Stephen Miller wasn't asked for comment or didn't provide comment. If you're going to run a story and the White House never comments, you can't ever get a quote from Stephen Miller. Does that mean you can't talk about anything unless they give you a quote to run? That can't be the case because that is a veto power. That's not how this works. It is true that silence is a statement. They're choosing not to respond to factual reporting about the human rights abuses that they are inflicting on people. Their illegal actions, they're the ones choosing not to comment on that. That has nothing to do with whether or not you should air a story. That is, if you are most concerned about informing the public. But if, like Bari Weiss, you're most concerned about what's going to make Donald Trump happy and the billionaire supporters that are supporting Donald Trump and putting people in place that will ensure he's happy with the editorial decisions and what is on his TV, then you see where this is going. Let's read some more from Sherilyn Alfonsi's statement. If the standard for airing a story becomes the government must agree to be interviewed, then the government effectively gains control over the 60 Minutes broadcast. We go from an investigative powerhouse to a stenographer for the state. These men risk their lives to speak with us. We have a moral and professional obligation to the sources who entrusted us with their stories. Abandoning them now is a betrayal of the most basic tenet of journalism, giving voice to the voiceless. We have been promoting this story on social media for days. Our viewers are expecting it. When it fails to air without a credible explanation, the public will correctly identify this as corporate censorship. We are trading 50 years of gold standard reputation for a single week of political quiet. I care too much about this broadcast to watch it be dismantled without a fight. Sharon. We have to give Sharon a ton of credit for coming forward, for revealing this information, for refusing to stay quiet about what's happening behind the scenes, because this is scary, what's happening to mainstream media, the source of news that many people go to. I know increasingly that people are turning to independent media. They're turning to YouTube channels like this one. They're turning to Instagram. They follow different influencers or creators, as they're sometimes called. And that is good in many cases, because there are people that are doing important work that aren't beholden to these interests, that aren't beholden to corporate interests, the Ellison interests, the billionaire interests. They're not towing the line like Barry Weiss, pulling important stories that are going to make the administration look bad. When you hear a 60 Minutes correspondent expressing concern that 60 Minutes is becoming a stenographer for the state, I mean, I know there's so much that has happened in just this year, this first year of Donald Trump being in office, but this is really scary because, like I said at the top, there's people that watch CBS News and they have no idea that what they're seeing on their TV, what they're seeing on CBS's YouTube channel, what they're seeing on CBS's Instagram has been hand-selected by Barry Weiss, who was put into place by billionaire funders and donors and supporters of Donald Trump to ensure that what he sees and what comes out of that news organization ultimately makes him happy. So be sure that you're supporting independent media. Be sure that you're sharing this video with people that you think might be watching CBS News so that they know what's going on. Because a lot of this is kind of falling on the back burner and many people aren't aware of what is actually happening behind the scenes at CBS News. So share this with someone you think needs to hear the message. Share this with someone who loves CBS News so that they know what's going on. I would love it if you would follow me on my YouTube channel. I host the Page Perspective on YouTube. I'm also on social media. You can follow me on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, at Brittany E. Page. I am no longer on the Nazi website known as Twitter.
In the United States of America, you don't have to apologize for being white anymore.
Turning Point USA held their AmericaFest 2025, and it came with, JD Vance endorsements and people taking selfies inside replicas of where Charlie Kirk was murdered. Really concerning stuff that we're going to get into. My name is Brittany Page. I'm the guest host today for Jesse. He is out sick. You may have noticed that he was gone on Friday. Hopefully he will be back soon. Please send him well wishes in the comments. I know he would really appreciate that. And also let him know I'm doing a really great job. I know you haven't really seen how well I've done just yet, but just trust that I'm doing a really good job, and go ahead and let him know. Okay, so AmericaFest from Turning Point USA. Like I said, let's just cover the selfie taking inside the replica of the tent where Charlie Kirk was killed. Let's just talk about that first, because isn't that concerning? I mean, I know that people are talking a lot about the grieving process that Erica Kirk is going through and the amount of time that she has spent on stage with fireworks and all of that. But this is kind of a new level of, I don't know what to make of it. I'm actually eager to hear from you guys what you make of it. Look at these photos. Turning Point USA attendees taking selfies inside a replica of the tent where Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. What's really concerning to me is like the ring light, and everyone is like smiling. And here's another one, this tweet from someone named Alyssa taking a photo in the replica of where he was killed. He should still be here. Another one of this man holding his child next to images of Charlie Kirk. I mean, you can see there's an image of Charlie Kirk in a suit. There's an image of Charlie Kirk. It looks like that's the day he was killed in the tent. At least this guy, I guess, looks solemn and isn't smiling. It's kind of an odd thing. I mean, this didn't happen that long ago, right? And these are people that were fans of Charlie Kirk, that appreciated his work, and they're like setting up a Ring camera and replica. I find that very disturbing. But if you can believe it, the more disturbing aspect of this is that we're apparently headed straight for a recreation of like the 1939 Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden. I fully expect the next Republican National Convention to look like the 1939 Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden. And that is primarily because of comments that JD Vance made. You know, Erica Kirk said that she would endorse JD Vance for president for 2028. So like, you know, they're already thinking about 2028. They're already thinking about what's going to happen if Donald Trump, I guess, number one, is alive due to his poor health and his chronically bandaged hand that they can't explain other than the constant handshaking. He's such a delicate man. He has bandages from handshaking. And so JD Vance maybe is the standard bearer. He's going to be the one that the party gets behind. And maybe he sees that too. And he's like, you know what? I need to lean into this divide that's happening in the Republican Party, where you have the more overt racists like Nick Fuentes and the people that platform Nick Fuentes and support Nick Fuentes, talking people like Elon Musk, whose first priority when he bought Twitter was to put Nick Fuentes back on the platform where he now has his largest following of any social media. I'm talking about people like Tucker Carlson, who sat down with Nick Fuentes for an interview. And JD Vance has kind of been this person who's like trying to separate himself from the Nick Fuentes supporting wing of the Republican Party. And I call that the more implicit racism. They don't want to be as explicit about it. They think it's like rude that Nick Fuentes just comes out and say it. They like to instead engage in daily human rights abuses of non-white people and have that kind of fly under the radar as not coded as racism, even though hopefully, you know, you, me, everyone watching this, we know that that's overt racism, but JD Vance likes to play it as though it's not. And he really came out with it at Turning Point USA's AmericaFest. He really came out with a direct message that lets us know that he really isn't that far apart from the Nick Fuentes wing of the Republican Party.
So we have relegated DEI to the dustbin of history, which is exactly where it belongs. In the United States of America, you don't have to apologize for being white anymore.
Did you hear that? In the United States of America, you don't have to apologize for being white anymore, he says. I mean, at this point, just bring Nick Fuentes up. What's the difference between that and Nick Fuentes? Some of you may know, many of you probably don't know because you don't even know who I am, but some of you may know if you follow my channel on YouTube, Page Perspective, where I host my own show, you'll know that I was raised in the white power movement. And so when I hear things like this, it takes me right back to my childhood indoctrination, where I used to believe these things as a kid, where I was told that there was something inherently bad about being white, and there was white guilt that my school and my teachers were going to make me feel, and I needed to be protected against that. I needed to be pulled out of history lessons in 4th grade so that I didn't get this indoctrination that told me it was bad to be white. Never mind that that's not happening in schools. That is not something that happens, but I did have to get pulled out of my class in 4th grade when we were learning about history. And that's what JD Vance apparently supports. He's leaning into the Nazification, the explicit Nazification of the Republican Party. And I'm trying to do that where I make it clear. I believe that the Republican Party has, for a long time, leaned into racism in order to gain votes. But many people don't code it as explicit. Now it's growing so explicit, so direct, so clear that I struggle to understand how people can even deny it at this point. Another good example of this was this article from the City Journal, I believe. And City Journal is a publication that is published by the conservative think tank Manhattan Institute. So these are conservatives that put this article out. It says, everyone wants to know what Gen Z Republicans think. We asked them. And during this conversation, Hitler comes up. And the people that are hosting this roundtable with Gen Z Republicans asks, what do you think about Adolf Hitler? Here are some of the answers. Ashley says, I think he was a great leader, to be honest. Imagine someone asking you, what do you think about Adolf Hitler? Right? You're in a round table. You're surrounded by other people. You're even alone, one-on-one with somebody. I don't know. What do you think of Adolf Hitler? The first thing you're going to say is, I think he was a great leader, to be honest. If you can believe it, it gets worse. This is Andrew. Andrew says, again, the question is, what do you think of Adolf Hitler? I'm in favor of a strong executive. I think we should have a stronger executive branch. I don't think we should be killing people or doing mass genocide, obviously, but I do think we should have a strong executive. So, Andrew, what do you think about Adolf Hitler? That was the question. This should not be a difficult question for people to answer. But it seems like it's pretty hard for these Gen Z Republicans. I feel like one of the biggest problems Trump is running into right now is all these little courts. They want to throw up little blockages against everything he's trying to do, whether it's his tariffs or deporting people. So I'm very pro strong executive leader, strong man. I support national sovereignty, and Hitler was a nationalist. There we go. So all of that was to say that essentially Hitler should be the model. Hitler should be the model for Donald Trump. Should we read the next one, or are we getting the point here? Bryce, I myself am actually Jewish ancestrally. I'm Christian by faith, but Jewish by blood. I've actually read Mein Kampf. The end conclusions that he came to, absolutely abominable, but I strangely understood where he was coming from as far as wanting to improve the national state of Germany. So the Gen Z Republicans are reading Mein Kampf and understanding where Hitler was coming from. Again, this is not a liberal publication. This is not put out by progressives. This is not put out by leftists. This is not trying to make Gen Z Republicans look bad. This was put out by a conservative think tank. They put this forward. I have another question here. This was a follow-up to the Hitler question. What do you think of Jewish people? I'm not even going to go through these answers. You can see them there on the screen. It's just endless racist stereotypes. I mean, it's horrifying. So when we hear from people, they'll sometimes say racism is going to die out. The younger generation knows better. Racism is going to die out. I don't see evidence of this, and I'm scared because you have the Republican Party very directly leaning into all of this. They're seeing where this is headed. They're seeing how popular Nick Fuentes is. They're seeing that when you don't deplatform him and you allow his platform to grow, that he gains more and more of these young people who are angry and looking for somewhere to put that. And when you have JD Vance saying it's people crossing the border coming here to steal your housing and steal your jobs. And now he's saying you can be white again. In the United States of America. You don't have to apologize for it. If you can believe it, it gets worse. Let's see this next clip from JD Vance.
Now, the Democrats are already talking about 2028, and it looks like they're going to nominate a California liberal who's presided over rolling blackouts, open borders, and unchecked violent gangs. They're just trying to settle on whether it's going to be Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris. And in the meantime, what are the Democrats offering you in the meantime? I got to say, ladies and gentlemen, they are not sending their best. Omar Fateh was Ilhan Omar's candidate for mayor of Mogadishu. Minneapolis. Little Freudian slip there. The candidate for Senate in Maine for the Democrats calls me a Nazi, which is rich coming from a guy who literally has a Nazi tattoo on his chest. And Jasmine Crockett. Oh, Jasmine Crockett. The record speaks for itself. She wants to be a senator, though her street girl persona is about as real as her nails.
leaning directly into racism, leaning directly into the same tired attacks on someone like Jasmine Crockett, who has established herself as a very effective leader, a very powerful leader, someone who they are afraid of because she has the power of persuasion. She can persuade people, and she's in the Senate race in Texas, and that makes them nervous. They always talk about, by the way, her nails. This was something that happened with Marjorie Taylor Greene at the bleach blonde butch body. I think I'm butchering it, but correct me. Let me know what it was. Bleach blonde butch built body. It was really good what it was. I cannot recreate the moment right now, but Marjorie Taylor Greene talked about her nails, I believe, maybe her hair at that in the conflict that they had. And what's strange about that is all these people have fake dyed blonde hair. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Erica Kirk, they have massive extensions. Erica Kirk, Megyn Kelly. I mean, all these people have fake nails, fake hair. They're done up in a way. And so it's strange to target Jasmine Crockett for these things, unless, of course, you're leaning into racist stereotypes and hoping to promote and advance racist attacks and amplify that so that she's a victim of those attacks online. JD Vance knows exactly what he's doing here. And he is just a despicable human being. To watch him speak, knowing that he has a wife who is non-white, knowing that he has kids who are not white, that Nick Fuentes has attacked him for having a wife that is not white, for having kids that are not white. It's disturbing. And instead of having some sort of moral principles, he's leaning into where he sees the party is headed, which is endorsing, accepting, promoting this explicit racism. So it's genuinely scary. I mean, I know that the AmericaFest, it's almost comical with the fireworks and the lights and all of the different wacky appearances and the selfie tents and all this stuff. But at the heart of it is directing the party and having young people attend, getting young people excited, getting young people involved, and believing racism. That's where all this is headed. I would love to know what you think about this. You can call and leave a fewer than 3-minute voicemail, 714-576-4054, or send an email to daily@dollemore.com. You can also support the work here on this channel by going to patreon.com/idoubtitpodcast or becoming a channel member for as little as $1.99 a month. And Jesse would really appreciate that.
A desk with a drawer opened containing photos of Donald Trump. Why were these files taken down?
We learned after releasing that photograph that there were concerns about those women and the fact that we had put that photo up. So we pulled that photo down. It has nothing to do with President Trump.
Donald Trump's Department of Justice got caught deleting a photo from the Epstein files release, a photo that contained Donald Trump's image with other girls, women. We don't know the context behind it, but it was deleted and then it was put back online. Have you seen this? My name is Brittany Page. I am hosting for Jesse today while he is out sick. Please send him well wishes. We hope he comes back very soon. He does really important work here that I know you value. I value it, so hopefully he will be back soon. And on a holiday week too. Hopefully you all are staying well and not sick. So this news about the Epstein files, they said that they had a deadline. They had to put everything up. They followed the deadline, quote unquote, and then they put up endlessly redacted information. I mean, there were just pages and pages where the entire page was completely blacked out. What did they have to redact? They were supposed to redact names of victims, images of victims that would be compromising or inappropriate to put out into the public sphere. And instead, apparently, what they redacted, and this is actually from Fox News reporting. Let's look at this Fox News reporting. The Justice Department redacted the names and identifiers of victims. Fox News Digital has learned that the same redaction standards were applied to politically exposed individuals and government officials. Now, that's not what was supposed to happen. You're not supposed to redact those names And so it begs the question, is that why entire pages were redacted? I mean, they're calling this transparency when it's not transparency. It appears that they have, again, hand-selected certain materials to release that won't make Trump look bad and that won't make Trump's supporters or people that he surrounds himself with, won't make them look bad. But they're happy to put out photos of Bill Clinton and other people that they apparently don't care about, like Bill Gates, who showed up in the photos, David Brooks showed up in the photos. And it's disturbing, right? Anytime you see any of these people, I want them all exposed. Anyone who was involved in wrongdoing, I want them exposed. You know, people will say, oh, what about Bill Clinton? Like, I care about Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, who spoke at the DNC last year, and I didn't attend that speech because why would I want to sit there and listen to Bill Clinton? I think that was the day that Stevie Wonder was performing. And so I did go to the DNC to see Stevie Wonder perform. And then I left. I left before Bill Clinton took the stage, okay? But let's look at this photo that they put up and then took down from this Daily Beast headline. DOJ reposts Trump-Epstein files pic after being caught pulling it. You can see there that Donald Trump is visible in the two photos to the bottom left, where you can see Donald Trump flanked on both sides with either women or girls. Again, we don't know the context of that. And then the one above that, you can see Donald Trump's face. And it looks like Melania is next to him. Now, Todd Blanche was asked about this image specifically, the fact that this was put up by the DOJ, then it was taken down after it started circulating on social media. Meet the Press, the host Kristen Welker asked Todd Blanche, what is the deal with this photo?
Mr. Blanche, I want to follow up with you on what you just said. You were referencing the 15 files released Friday. They disappeared from DOJ's website yesterday, including this photo of what looks like a desk with a drawer open containing photos of Donald Trump. Just to be very clear, to put a fine point on it, why were these files taken down? You're saying it was at the direction of a judge?
Well, you can see in that photo, there's photographs of women. And so we learned after releasing that photograph that there were concerns about those women and the fact that we had put that photo up. So we pulled that photo down. It has nothing to do with President Trump. There are dozens of photos of President Trump already released to the public, seeing him with Mr. Epstein. He has said that in the 90s and early 2000s, he socialized with him. So the absurdity of us pulling down a photo, a single photo, because President Trump was in it, is laughable. And the fact that everybody's trying to act like that's the case is a reflection of their true motivation. But the reality is anybody, any victim, any victim's lawyers, any victim rights group can reach out to us and say, hey, Department of Justice, there's a document, there's a photo, there's something within the Epstein files that identifies me. And we will then, of course, pull that off and investigate it.
Are you saying that one or more of the women in one of the photos or several of the photos is a victim or a survivor of Jeffrey Epstein, and that's why you took those files down? And will they be put back up?
No, that's not what I'm saying. We, of course, if we knew that, if we believed that photograph contained a survivor, we wouldn't have put it up in the first place without redacting the faces. But notwithstanding what we believe, we don't have perfect information. And so when we hear from victims' rights groups about this type of photograph, we pull it down and investigate. We're still investigating that photo. The photo will go back up, and the only question is whether there will be redactions on the photo. And of course, if there are survivors in any of the photos, we will redact them as Congress expects us to do, as President Trump expects us to do, and as the Attorney General and Director Patel have directed the department to do.
So they took the photo down because it had women. Again, he's using the word women. We don't actually know, right? I mean, we don't know. Could be women, could be girls. We don't know. That's not really confirmed. So he got reports that there were women/girls in the photo, and they wanted to make sure that those weren't actually victims. And then Kristen Welker clarifies, okay, so you needed to make sure that there were victims. You thought there were possibly victims in this photo. No, that's not what I'm saying. I mean, it sounds like what you were saying, but it sounds like you can't just admit the truth, which is maybe you forgot this one. Maybe you posted this one and you didn't mean to. And then it started going viral on social media. And so what do? You're like, oh shit, let's take it down. That'll make everything better. And then people say, oh my God, they took it down. Well, now you're just putting a spotlight right on this photo. And I'm glad that they're doing it, because if you look at that photo, you can see to the right that there's a pretty thick photo album, and that appears to be filled with photos. All of those photos, as long as they do not contain victims, should be made public, because potentially there are other high-profile, wealthy men who were involved in the international sex trafficking of minors, widespread abuse of minors, that should be exposed, which is what the survivors want. And I don't think that Todd Blanche spends a lot of time thinking about what the survivors want, especially, of course, since this is the man who met with Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend and also co-conspirator in this international sex trafficking ring. She was the recruiter. She also abused girls. She wasn't just an innocent girlfriend in all of this. She was behind recruiting the girls, training the girls, teaching them how to interact with Jeffrey Epstein, teaching them how to be abused by Jeffrey Epstein. And she's the one who kept this going. Todd Blanche, of course, met with her, has given her special treatment, and Kristen Welker asked about this as well.
All right, couple more, and we're almost out of time. I do want to ask you about Ghislaine Maxwell, who was, of course, convicted in 2021 for her role in helping Jeffrey Epstein traffic his victims. In July, you interviewed her in Florida, where she was serving a 20-year sentence in federal prison. Just a week later, Maxwell was moved to a more permissive prison camp in Texas. Why was she moved just days after you interviewed her, Mr. Blanche?
So that's a Bureau of Prison Security issue that I will not talk about.
Did you have anything to do with it? Did you have anything to do with it?
Let me finish. First of all, I am responsible for the Bureau of Prisons. So every decision that they make lands on my desk to the extent it needs to. But just let me talk about the security issue. At the time that I met Ms. Maxwell, there was a tremendous amount of scrutiny and publicity towards her. And the institution she was in, she was suffering numerous threats against her life. So the BOP is not only responsible for putting people in jail and making sure they stay in jail, but also for their safety. And so she was moved. She is in federal prison. She was in federal prison before. She's in federal prison now. She's doing 20 years because she was convicted. And the fact that she was moved, she might be moved to another institution tomorrow if security requires it. And that's true of any federal inmate across this country.
But as you know, survivors were outraged by all of this, especially the fact that she was moved. Why talk to Ghislaine Maxwell and not the survivors, Mr. Blanche?
What you just said is completely false. We will talk to any survivor at any time, which is something that we have
you
said
talked to them
from day one.
But have you talked to them?
Of course. The attorney, first of all, they have to want to speak with us. The Attorney General and I spoke with a victims' rights group as recently as Thursday. Okay. And if folks want to talk to us next week or the week after or in the coming months, they know how to get a hold of us. And we will always talk to survivors and victims' families.
You know, it's infuriating, honestly, to hear Todd Blanche try to act like he cares about safety in prisons, when again, we talked about 60 Minutes censoring the programming on CONTEMPT, the torture prison that Venezuelan immigrants were sent to. And part of that reporting was that Bari Weiss objected to them being called Venezuelan immigrants. She wanted them to be called illegal immigrants in the 60 Minutes package, to use the Trump administration's phrase, when many of these people had applied for asylum. And then they were, at their court appearance, and then they were attacked and taken and sent to a different country and sent to a torture prison where they were abused. You talk about abuses in this country in prisons for people that are serving their time. You talk about women's prisons that get shut down in this country because of the number of rapes that occur for people that are incarcerated in prisons. So you can save it on your safety in prisons issue, Todd Blanche, when you work for this administration that doesn't seem to care about the poor people in prisons that are being abused, the poor people in prisons that are being sexually assaulted. And Ghislaine Maxwell, what does she get? She gets moved to a different prison for what he says are safety issues. I'm pretty sure there's other ways to keep Ghislaine Maxwell safe. I mean, unless you're worried about a Jeffrey Epstein-like scenario happening, which we still don't know the circumstances around his death. Now, do we? A lot of complications. Now, he says that they have met with survivors, then he kind of hedges on that and is like, well, some of them don't want to meet with us. You know, they keep talking about this. We're willing to talk to survivors. We support the survivors. You know, have the survivors in the Oval Office. Why hasn't Donald Trump invited the survivors to the Oval Office to sit down with the survivors and talk about exactly what they want? Why? Because the survivors want transparency. They want all of these men to be exposed. They don't care if the men are personal friends with Donald Trump. They don't care if Donald Trump is implicated in wrongdoing. They want everyone who participated in the widespread abuse of children to be exposed. And you should support that too, regardless of political affiliation of whoever was involved in abusing these kids. I don't care if it's Bill Clinton. I don't care who it is, what their political affiliation is. The survivors want them exposed. We should support them in that effort. The White House does not support them in that effort. If they did, they wouldn't be releasing Epstein file documents that are redacted completely and selectively putting photos up of their political enemies to make them look bad. We know what's happening here. It's corruption. It's a cover-up. And they're trying to sell it to us through Todd Blanche. Thankfully, it's Todd Blanche because he's not doing a great job. The goal isn't to destroy Pam Bondi, but the goal is to hold Pam Bondi accountable. Democrats are coming forward with a plan to hold Trump's Department of Justice, to hold the Attorney General Pam Bondi accountable for her lack of transparency in releasing the Epstein files. My name is Brittany Page. I am filling in for Jesse today while he is out sick. This is really disturbing. I mean, the Department of Justice was forced to put up these documents because of the work that Ro Khanna, Democrat, and Thomas Massie, Republican, did together, the bipartisan effort to force transparency. Because the Trump White House is sitting there saying, we don't want transparency. I know they had the conservative influencers out to the White House where they got their binders that said like Epstein file release part 1, which of course implicit in that means that there's going to be a part 2, maybe even part 3. Who knew how far they were going to take it? Turns out they weren't going to take it very far at all. This was Trump's issue. Epstein was Trump's issue. He leaned into QAnon. He used to play the song at his rallies, the theme song for QAnon, where we go one, we go all, or whatever. And their whole thing is about there being an elite cabal of Democrat sex predators that are leading sex trafficking rings. I mean, this was the whole thing. Where are all of these QAnon supporters as Donald Trump and every single handpicked person in his administration stands in the way of transparency on this very issue that was top of mind for these supporters? It is wild. But now we have Democrats out here who, because Pam Bondi decided to release just hundreds of pages of fully redacted information when that is not what they were supposed to do, redacting only the victim names, we have Democrats coming out to tell us that the next step looks like holding Pam Bondi in contempt because of her refusal to follow what she was supposed to do. Now let's listen to Ro Khanna, who went on Morning Joe this morning to talk about what's to come, what the plans are for Pam Bondi.
So I just feel like when I hear you talk about inherent contempt or impeachment, I mean, these are words that Democrats have been really careful not to throw around, especially the impeachment word. It's come up a few times and you've seen leadership walk it back. Why is this time different? And do you have the backing of Democratic leadership to actually push forward with impeachment if it comes to that? Is that the next step when we come back in January?
It's different because it's coming from Republicans, too. If it was just me out there or Robert Garcia out there, it would be seen as, okay, as this is just a Democratic thing. This is going to be Thomas Massie leading it. There are a few Republicans who are on board with it, but we're not going straight to impeachment. We're starting with contempt, and the idea would be that she'd get a 30-day grace period. By the way, she's already in violation of the law. 30-day grace period to get the documents out.
30-day grace for the sergeant at arms detaining and arresting her? Because that's what it is.
Well, it would be a fine. A fine of up to $5,000 each day she doesn't get these documents out. My goal is not to destroy Pam Bondi. I didn't even know who Pam Bondi was. I've gotten to know these survivors. And my goal is that on a personal level, these documents need to come out. They lives were traumatized. They want these documents out, and whatever we can do to get the documents out.
Pablo is.
So I say this with respect to Ro Khanna because I appreciate what he's doing here. I value what he's doing here. I think he does really good work. I know Jesse has had him on to talk about this issue specifically with the Epstein files. I've had Ro Khanna on my channel as well. I appreciate what he does. But when he says there, my goal is not to destroy Pam Bondi, I don't think that's productive framing. And I know it's difficult to talk. It's, live TV. You're trying to, be in the moment and you're maybe not choosing your words as carefully. But the goal isn't to destroy Pam Bondi, but the goal is to hold Pam Bondi accountable. And so one of my frustrations is, was the expectation that by the Friday deadline, they were going to have everything up that they needed to have up? Was the expectation that they were going to follow the law? Or was the expectation that they were going to violate the law as they have? I would assume that we all expected that they would violate the law because that's kind of been the pattern with the Trump administration. And so I feel like the Democrats should have been prepared for that to happen when the deadline happened on Friday, when they had to have all of these documents up and properly redacted. And they should have been prepared with an action then. And then there's this conversation of, should we hold Pam Bondi in contempt or should we move for impeachment? And some other Democrats who were interviewed over the weekend, like Senator Tim Kaine, said that he doesn't yet support impeachment. You heard Ro Khanna say that he's not moving for impeachment yet, that they're going to give Pam Bondi some time to correct the record here and do the right thing. But I guess I have to, ask, how many times are we going to do that? Have we not already seen enough from the Trump administration, what they're capable of, what their patterns of behavior are? They take things to the limit. They straight up violate the law. They dare judges to force them to follow the law, and then they don't follow that either. I mean, is Pam Bondi going to use this opportunity to correct the record? I don't think so. I would love to hear what you guys think. Comment below and let me know. But, Joe Scarborough entered this conversation and he also took a strange approach. I mean, again, it's not surprising coming from Joe Scarborough, who is a conservative. And he went so far as to say he's very confused about Donald Trump's efforts at preventing transparency here when it comes to the Epstein files. And Joe Scarborough said, Donald Trump's not on the Epstein list. There's nothing really there as far as damaging information on Donald Trump. How could he be standing in the way of transparency when he's not implicated in any way? That's Joe Scarborough's approach. That's not my approach. Let's hear from him directly so that you understand I'm not overselling what he said.
One of the great mysteries to me and a lot of other people is we've had reporting for some time. Donald Trump is not on Epstein's list. There's nothing in there that's really damning about Donald Trump. And as Susie Wild says, not damning about Donald Trump.
According to the chief.
Or Bill Clinton. So one of the great mysteries all along in this, not been like, what's Donald Trump hiding? What did he do? It's like, why, if he's not in these files, which all the reporting says he's not, why is he so obsessed on blocking access to the files? Is he trying to protect somebody?
Joe, you got to the actual heart of the question, and it's actually not been reported. One of the reasons Marjorie Taylor Greene got on board with Massey and my effort is she fundamentally believed that Trump was not implicated. Yeah. And she would call the president and say, look, just get these out. I don't know why you're not getting it out. And she would tell Massey and me, of course he's going to come around. And every press conference we had, we never made it about Donald Trump. We made it about the survivors. The survivors pleaded with Donald Trump. You can be a hero. No previous president has done this. Release the files. And what people are asking, and frankly, even I'm asking, is what are they hiding?
Why is it that they're not releasing the draft 60-count indictment when they only charged Epstein with 2 counts? Why aren't they releasing the 82-page prosecution memo of all the implications he had with rich and powerful folks? Why are they protecting this Epstein class? And why aren't they releasing the FBI interviews? Every time they do one of these things of concealing, they're just raising further doubt.
So the big question there being, why is he so obsessed with blocking access to these files when, and everyone at the table seems to be in agreement, that Donald Trump is not accused of wrongdoing, that by exposing everything in the files, Donald Trump won't look bad, that there will be no criminal doing on his part. Now, we have to remind you that there was reporting from the Wall Street Journal just a few months ago, back in July. The headline there, Justice Department told Trump in May that his name is among many in the Epstein files. BONDI, referring to Pam Bondi, also told the president at the meeting that Justice decided not to release more Epstein documents because of the presence of child pornography and the need to protect victims. There was also recently a New York Times article with reporting kind of tracking the history of Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump's relationship, their friendship, their very, very close, best friendship, and the dissolution of that relationship. In that article, they write, the reporters write, quote, over the years, Mr. Epstein or his partner, Ghislaine Maxwell, introduced at least 6 women who have accused them of grooming or abuse to Mr. Trump. According to interviews, court testimony, or other records, one was a minor at the time. None have accused Mr. Trump himself of inappropriate behavior. Now, I always need to flag that sentence when you hear it every time a mainstream media outlet is talking about the Epstein files. They go out of their way to say Donald Trump has not been accused of wrongdoing related to Epstein. And that's just not true. There is a woman who came forward to say that she was raped by Donald Trump at age 13, Katie Johnson. And I will link to a very important Substack that was written by the philosopher and professor Kate Mann on this accounting of what happened here. So it's just not true that Donald Trump has not been accused of wrongdoing related to Epstein. He has been accused of wrongdoing related to Epstein. He was told that his name is all over the Epstein files. So for someone like Joe Scarborough to be like, he's not on the list, he's not going to be implicated. Why is he so fearful? Well, obviously he's fearful that he's going to be implicated. Why else would he be acting like this? I mean, if he's innocent, why is he working overtime to look so guilty? That's the question. And that's the very important question. And let's say it's not him, right? Let's say he's not going to be directly implicated in wrongdoing. Then he's bending over backwards to protect his pals who are going to be implicated in wrongdoing. He wants to protect child sex predators from embarrassment and their reputation being ruined when their identity is revealed from the Epstein files. I mean, either way you shake it, there's no good explanation for refusing to give the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, who are desperate for accountability and transparency, and accountability in the form of these sex predators whose identities are being protected and hidden from public view, having that out in the open so that people know who these men are and exactly what they did. That is accountability. That is transparency. And Donald Trump's standing in the way of it. And instead of spending all this time saying he's not accused of wrongdoing, what is he so worried about? Why don't we just grapple with the reality here, which is the president of the United States is implicated in either knowing about this sex trafficking ring or having participated in some way with disgusting, inappropriate behavior with girls and women. And if you read this New York Times article about the history of their relationship, it's extremely disturbing. And I don't know how anyone walks away from it feeling like they need to launch into this defense like Joe Scarborough did. All right. My name is Brittany Page. I host my own show here on YouTube, The Page Perspective. I would love to have you go and subscribe to my channel. I talk a lot about politics, but also public policy. I interview authors. I try to talk about a lot of different things and bring that information to you. So I would love to see you there. You can also follow me on social media at Brittany E. Page on Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok. Jesse is also on all of those places at Dollemore. You can follow his Facebook page. Maybe that's where you are right now watching that. I also have a Facebook page. It's new, so you can go and like that, Page Perspective. But the most important thing, Jesse would want to hear from you. He does want to hear from you. So leave a fewer than 3-minute voicemail at 714-576-4054 or send an email to daily@dollemore.com or comment below and feed that algorithm, or share this video with a friend, whatever you want to do. Subscribe to the channel, that's free. You can become a channel member by clicking the join button below. For as little as $1.99 a month, you can support the work that we do here. You can also go to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. Thank you so much for being with me here today. I hope that Jesse gets better. I hope he's back soon. I know that you hope all of that too. So let's send him well wishes. Let's send him the best.
But to just blatantly arrest me and charge me with inciting violence for raising my voice, it's the First Amendment. It's protected.
Welcome to the Dollemore Daily. My name is Brittany Page, and I am the guest host for today while Jesse is unfortunately out sick. Please send him well wishes. And I know, the flu's going around, COVID's going around. So far, he hasn't tested positive for those, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully he's back very soon. Thank you for being here. A topic for today's show, if you're watching the, lengthy, all the clips put together show, is the government censorship of media and CBS News becoming an arm of the state, becoming a stenographer for the state, as it was called by one of 60 Minutes correspondents. And it's a scary time where you look at the media landscape and it is being captured by the oligarchs, by the billionaires, by the class that Donald Trump approves of and puts in place, his hand-picked people. And so it's a scary time. And that's why it's important to find people that are doing important work in this space, in the political space, in the journalist space. And one of those people is someone who was actually recently physically dragged out of a tent here in DC where they were holding a 24/7 protest against Donald Trump. You may remember that Jesse spoke to this man, Will Kelly, the woke farmer, as he's known. Well, he also recently was arrested by the Secret Service, and now they have taken down his Instagram account. He has started a new one, the woke farmer 2, so he's back on the platform, but this censorship, this growing censorship of people who are doing important work is really scary. And today we are joined by Will Kelly to talk about what happened to him in the recent weeks and, of course, with his account being banned. And now we are joined by Will Kelly, who has a new handle on Instagram after being banned from the platform. That is the woke farmer 2. And Will, you've really been going through it. You got manhandled, assaulted by, I believe it was the Park Police, out of the Union Station protest. You got arrested by the Secret Service. Now you've been banned from Instagram. Can you just take us through what's been happening with you with all this work that you're doing?
Well, I've been pushing the limits of the First Amendment. I've been, protesting the right people, the people that are destroying our government, that are destroying our nation. So, they've been coming back at us hard. They pulled us out of our legal permitted protest at Union Station with, under 48 hours notice. They came in the dead of the night and they dragged me out physically. A few days later, I was at the White House protesting, the Christmas reception for Donald Trump. And, I was doing my thing. I was raising my voice. I was cursing at what I perceived to be Nazis. And the Secret Service all of a sudden comes out of nowhere and drags me to the ground and arrests me, charging me with, inciting violence, a complete violation of my First Amendment rights. And now they're coming after my Instagram account. I don't know if that's related, but it really seems like a coordinated attack on my First Amendment rights.
Something interesting is, I guess, what gets coded as violence, right? Because sure, you are in your videos yelling at Nazis. Sometimes you're using expletives. Sometimes it can appear very aggressive, right? But when I watch it, I don't code that as violence. And maybe that's because I've been through some stuff in my life and that doesn't rise to the level of violence. And I know you have too as a combat veteran. And then the same people that would look at that and say, oh, he's being violent. They don't consider ripping apart families or trampling on the rights of non-white people. They don't see that as violence. Is that something you've noticed in the midst of all this?
I've definitely noticed that. And, now that I'm traveling the nation, protesting at ICE facilities, I've noticed that the local police, they also don't understand our First Amendment rights. Like at the Secret Service event, it would have been perfectly understandable for them to detain me and analyze the situation and de-escalate, but to just blatantly arrest me and charge me with inciting violence for raising my voice, it's the First Amendment. It's protected. I was not a clear and present danger. I wasn't threatening anyone. These officers do not know the law that they are enforcing.
So take us through why your Instagram account was disabled. What's the message that you got? What's the reasoning? Did you post a video and then you noticed like an association between something you posted and this action?
Well, I don't like to be a conspiracy theorist, but I've recently started protesting at the Ronald Reagan Center in D.C., just around the corner from the Heritage Foundation. And every single one of those videos was suspiciously removed, even though I'm not doing anything differently than, my other protests. And so I went back there a few days ago, and it just so happens my account all of a sudden is just completely disabled, completely removed, with no option to appeal, with no warnings, no suspensions, just gone.
Wow. Yeah, that's remarkable. So you've started a new account, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm
okay. Where can the people follow you now?
Oh, sorry. I'm on DeWoke. I'm DeWoke Farmer 2 on Instagram now. I'm also DeWoke Farmer on Blue Sky. Jesse has gotten me to make a Blue Sky account. I'm also DeWoke Farmer on YouTube, and I'm also on TikTok now. So I've diversified in case they try to pull me down again.
That's really important. That's a great idea. I think everyone needs to go follow you wherever they are, wherever you are, because they definitely need to support you. And like you said, you've spent a lot of time doing activism here in DC, but I think you're on the move now. Where are you now? What are your activist plans? If you want to reveal them, I don't know if that's like something you don't want to reveal.
No, it's no problem. So right now I'm down in Raleigh, North Carolina. I just left an ICE facility in actually Cary, North Carolina a few minutes ago. I was protesting over there. But right now my wife, my dog, and my cat and I, we've loaded up in the van. We're headed to Los Angeles, where one of our volunteers has an RV we can use. And so our big first event of protesting is going to be in Los Angeles on January 15th. And then we are going to be going across the entire country. Wherever there is ICE, we will be going to protest them. We will be going to encourage local communities to stand up against this tyranny, to stand up against this fascism, to stand up for their rights.
It's so inspiring. The work that you do is so important. How can people support the work that you're doing? If they are watching this and they're like, wow, this guy is doing important work, I want to support him. How can they do it?
Well, the most important thing is I want people to go buy a megaphone. I want to see at least one person outside of every ICE facility in America, scolding these Nazis for their bad decisions, but also financial support. I have a GoFundMe. I would really appreciate any help because, I don't make a lot of money as a disabled veteran. I have a small check every month that my wife and I are surviving off of. So because of people donating, we are able to do this. I don't have to go back to work right now. So donations are making this happen. And I really appreciate all the support we have gotten already.
Yeah, we'll definitely put the link in the description below so that people can support the GoFundMe and ensure that you have the funds to continue doing this important work, because it's important that there is not a moment of peace for the people that are participating in this Nazi behavior, for these Nazis. There should not be a moment of peace. So you're very inspiring. You're doing really inspiring work. I encourage everyone to go follow you. We're going to put all your links in the description below. And Will Kelly, I really, really appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for what you and Jesse do. You guys are amazing. Thank you.
I appreciate it.